Reaganomics explained. Have you wondered whatever happened to Reaganomics? This was Ronald Reagan's big idea to achieve broad-based prosperity through supply-side tax cuts. How did that all work out? Let's take a look at the evidence.
Guess what? Bidenomics is working. First, making smart investments in America. Second, educating and empowering American workers to grow the middle class. And third, promoting competition to lower costs to help small businesses.
Okay, folks. So I know that I've covered this publication before in previous publications. I think I even did a couple of hard copy versions where I read the hard copy because I have this printed out, and I did a couple videos when after the Mac went down. I did a couple videos where I showed the hard copy, and I was just kind of reading page by page and just inspecting this interesting publication here. And I know a lot of you are probably already familiar with it. You've probably already seen other videos where they present this information with ominous music and all of this extra grandeur behind it. And you're not going to get that here. I'm just going to kind of read the text and then interpret it and put my opinion on it, you know. But in case you're not familiar with this publication, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, it says this document is the doctrine adopted by the Policy Committee of the Bilderberg Group during its first known meeting in 1954. Okay. The following document, dated May 1979, was found on July 7th, 1986, in an IBM copier that had been purchased at a surplus sale. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Dun, dun, dun. Anyway, I've already, like I said, because I'm repetitive, I'll say it again. I've done several videos already reading this kind of text for text, word for word, and I don't want to be that, repetitive. I just want to kind of skim through a couple of different interesting points that I thought were kind of curious. And one of them was this particular part here that says, the Quiet War was quietly declared by the international elite at a meeting held in 1954. Although the silent weapons system was nearly exposed 13 years later, the evolution of the new weapons system has never suffered any major setbacks. This volume marks the 25th anniversary of the beginning of the Quiet War. Already, this domestic war has had many victories on many fronts throughout the world. Just think of everything that was going on between 1954 and 1979, right? Political introduction. In 1954, it was well recognized by those in positions of authority that it was only a matter of time, only a few decades, which would then put it into 1984-ish, right? Before the general public would be able to grasp and upset the cradle of power. For the very elements of the new silent weapon technology were as accessible for a public utopia as they were for providing a private utopia. The issue of primary concern, that of dominance, revolved around the subject of the energy sciences. A lot of talk about energy nowadays, right? And that's been ongoing talk. This whole talk about solar and all this stuff, it's not a new neo-science. They've been talking about and developing solar and research and developing solar technology since the 60s. Research it. I've done videos on it. Look through my content. You'll probably find a couple different videos on that too. Anyway, there's one of these that I want to focus on, which is going to be the economics. So I'm going to kind of skim through after I read this part of this paragraph here about energy. Energy. The energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural science. Okay, let me repeat that sentence. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural energy. And they are absolutely controlling our natural energy. And they are absolutely controlling science at this point. They have hijacked science and turned it into something that is just, it's not science anymore, as far as I'm concerned. But this goes on to say, I digress, and social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is the study of the sources and control of social energy. Interesting that they would bring that up at a time like this as well, during this whole Bidenomics thing, right? Then before that, we had the whole Reaganomics thing, right? And all science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge. The end is control. What do you know? Really? That's what science is, huh? That's not what I was taught. Beyond this remains only one issue. Who will be the beneficiary? Well, interesting, huh? I'm going to scroll down here. Like I said, I've covered this before, several of these other paragraphs. I've pretty much read this entire publication between a span of about 8, maybe 9 different videos. But I want to scroll down to the economic shock testing because I think it's very relevant to everything that's going on right now as far as our economic state is concerned. And they can absolutely control all of this. They can absolutely control all of the markets, and they do. And anyway, in this publication, it talks about economic shock testing. And in recent times, the application of operations research to the study of the public economy has been obvious for anyone who understands the principles of shock testing. In the shock testing of an aircraft airframe, the recoil impulse of firing a gun mounted on the airframe causes shock waves in that structure, which tell aviation engineers the conditions under which some parts of the airplane or the whole airplane or its wings will start to vibrate or flutter like a guitar string, a flute reed, or a tuning fork, and disintegrate or fall apart in flight. Interesting analogy. economic engineers achieve the same result in studying the behavior of the economy and the consumer public by carefully selecting a staple commodity such as beef, coffee, gasoline, or sugar, and then causing a sudden change or shock in its price or availability, thus kicking everybody's budget and buying habits out of shape. Well, let me repeat that sentence, okay? Says here that the economic engineers achieve the same result in studying the behavior of the economy and the consumer public by carefully selecting a staple commodity such as beef, coffee, gasoline, or sugar, and then what? Causing a sudden change or shock in its price or availability, thus kicking everybody's budget and buying habits out of shape. They then sit back and observe the shock waves, which result by monitoring the changes in advertising prices and sales of that and other commodities. That's why the data and our shopping habits and people that use Amazon and people that use all of these apps and that track all of our buying habits are, that people, a lot of people are just oblivious to that. That's really what all of that data collection is about. It's about being able to control these markets and control the economy, picking one of these staple commodities. And they can go back through all of this data that they collect on all of us and decide if they want to maybe shake something up a little bit, you know what I mean? And they have full control over it. The objective of such studies is to acquire the know-how to set the public economy into a predictable state of motion or change, even a controlled, self-destructive state of motion, which will convince the public that certain expert people should take control of the money system and reestablish security rather than liberty and justice for all. When the subject citizens are rendered unable to control their financial affairs, they, of course, become totally enslaved, a source of cheap labor. Interesting paragraph, huh? Not only the prices of commodities, but also the availability of labor can be used as the means of shock testing. The availability of labor, huh? Labor strikes deliver excellent test shocks to an economy, especially in the critical services areas of trucking, transportation, communication, public utilities, energy, water, garbage collection, etc. So thus gives us the real purpose of like unions, right? Because unions drive the largest percentage of strikes going on. So the unions can definitely affect and influence market changes and the economy as well. And by shock testing, it is found that there is a direct relationship between the availability of money flowing in an economy and the real psychological outlook and response of masses of people dependent upon that availability. So it's just a big study, and we're all just big test subjects for this shit, right? Here's another example. For example, there's a measurable quantitative relationship between the prices of gasoline and the probability that a person would experience a headache, feel a need to watch a violent movie, smoke a cigarette, or go to a tavern for a mug of beer. It is most interesting that by observing and measuring the economic models by which the public tries to run from their problems and escape from reality, and by applying the mathematical theory of operations research, it is possible to program computers to predict the most probable combination of created events or shocks, which will bring about a complete control and subjugation of the public through a subversion of the public economy by shaking the plum tree. Let me repeat that sentence. It is possible to program computers to predict the most probable combination of created events or shocks that will bring about a complete control and subjugation of the public through a subversion of the public economy by shaking the plum tree. And then they give a little introduction to the theory of economic shock testing, and they list off these certain commodities. And we've seen stories of beef shortages, coffee shortages, that kind of thing like that. We've seen that in the news headlines in previous years. We know all about that. And we've even had, shortages of other commodities as well. And when we were talking about a labor shortage, wasn't that something that I believe was discussed, a labor shortage as well? Here's some of the news articles from the looming sugar shortage. Okay. Here's what you need to know about the sugar shortage. This was from 2023. At least 7 states across the southeast U.S. are experiencing gas shortages on Tuesday. And this was back in 2021. The national average gas price creeped toward $3 a gallon as the Colonial Pipeline Company works to restore its fuel pipeline system. So they can control these pipelines too. We all know that, right? We all know what happens when something happens to one of these pipelines, right? Biden administration scrambles to stave off the gas shortage crisis. Fuel supply chief suspended as Libya's fuel crisis worsens. Gas shortage worsens. Climate change related weather events, what do you know, have affected what? Coffee. A shortage of coffee, right? A coffee shortage is coming and it could last 3 years because of climate change, right? Coffee bean prices are hitting new highs. Fears over coffee shortages send prices soaring to new highs. And this is just from this year. Coffee is becoming a luxury. And here we go with some cattle shortages, right? Total U.S. cattle herd drops to lowest level since 1951. And why? Of course, climate change, right? Beef prices could hit record high. Record beef prices. Drought threatens cattle herds. Oh, and here's more on the tobacco, because now we have this Zyn shortage, which is some kind of a nicotine pouch that's running out of stock. So there's a current nicotine shortage statistic going on. With cigar shortage, tobacco shortage. There's your global sugar shortages. It's interesting when I look back at some of these publications like this, where there's still all of this speculation. Oh, it's just a conspiracy. Well, there's no way for anyone, including myself, to prove that this particular publication, is they're actually doing stuff like this, where they're actually controlling these different sectors of industry, including the economic factors of it. And I don't think that it's too far-fetched to think that they could absolutely control these different markets, and they can do it through the media, and they can do it through different, other publications that have been put out there for the public to read, for everybody to see. But what other choice do we have but to continue to play along? I mean, it's all just a big stage, right? The world is a big stage, and we're just kind of being directed around. And when it comes to shocks, when we're talking about shocks and shocks to the systems, here we're talking about record beef prices, and they're talking about here, Richard beef, but the shock landed atop decades of takeovers. The shock of it all, right? Because they're shocking our economic system. So anyway, I'm tired of being used as a test subject myself. I don't know about y'all. Anyway, know that I appreciate you and that you matter very much to me. And there's definitely more to come if I can help it, including some more on this particular publication. If anybody wants any more information on it, I want to do another updated video on energy, on how they are exploiting our energy sources and our natural sciences, and how natural sciences is being exploited to meet these objectives, where all science is merely a means to an end, and this means knowledge, and the end is control. But who is the beneficiary? I don't think that us everyday people are beneficiaries necessarily. I think it's something that really needs to be delved into once again. So I'll probably do another video and cover a little bit more on this whole control of natural energy and natural sciences, because where they sure have done a number on Nevada out here, and the territory out here in Nevada, that's for sure. Anyway, thanks for watching. Stay safe and mindful.
Predict the future. The best way to predict the future is to invent it.